Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Tunnel Vision, a show brought to you by USCFootball.com. I'm your host and publisher of USCFootball.com, Ryan Abraham. Joined in studio, who are all just back from the desert. We got Connor Morrissette, triple-double, and we got the Helium Boy, the Cilantro Boy, Chris Trevino, coming back, editing his highlights from the game. USC defeats Arizona State 42-28. We're going to have a fun show for you tonight. We got to talk about the game. Some fans not happy. I don't know if you guys realize this. Some fans aren't very happy with the 14-point win in the desert. So let's break it all down. Hopefully maybe talk some people off the ledge. What could USC done better? All that kind of stuff. Jack Smith is still driving back from Arizona, I think. So he's not going to be road games. He might not be able to do the Sunday show. So I think he'll be back here next week. But I'll be hosting. We got Chris and Connor to talk about everything that's going on here. We are live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. So if you have comments on either Facebook or our YouTube channels, you're watching it live, please put them in there, and I'll try to put them up and on the screen so everyone can see. You have a question, write question first in all capital letters, and I'll start and kind of look back later on. You can also call in live. We'll take your calls live. Make them good, make them quick. 5124-TUNNEL is the number if you want to call in there. And wherever you're listening, watching, if you're listening to the podcast later, please like and subscribe all of our stuff. It really helps grow the show, helps us get water so Chris can be hydrated when we're doing the shows. He has a cookie in front of him. I got him. He's just wanting to jump into it, but he's going to wait till afterwards.
I'm a backup today, but you gave me a cookie, so I feel like I've already won.
It's a winning day. You didn't eat your whole cookie there, Connor.
No, I didn't really have dinner yet, so I didn't think a full cookie before dinner would do my stomach any favors, but it was a very good appetizer. Thank you. 3/4 of it. Here's the remaining quarter.
Right before. Yeah, I might eat that later.
Yeah, you can definitely have it. I didn't put my mouth on it. I promise. Just picking on it.
No worries. Okay. So everyone, thank you again for tuning in. We want to break down this game, talk about what's been going on. So if you're wherever you're watching, listening, again, we thank you very much for doing that. We got to start off. This was USC's first road game. And none of us were part of instant analysis. Shotgun Spratling, who flew in and flew back, and then Jack Smith, they did instant analysis. But one of the common themes that they felt about this game was what it felt like when USC went on the road at Oregon State. I think they played on the road at Stanford before. That didn't really count because that wasn't like a road environment. That was a more real road environment. This was Parents' Weekend. It was sold out. They were exciting. We're in the press box. Connor and I can't really feel the energy because it's like basically because it's so hot there. It's like hermetically sealed. Like you can't get, there's no air, there's no sound getting in and out of that. So we didn't feel it, but I wanted you to, Chris, maybe describe what it was like because it seemed like from what the guys were saying, the sideline was a big deal. Like there was a lot of crowd noise. It was a tough environment for the guys to play in.
Definitely, yeah. It was definitely loud down there on the field, with the heat. The student section came out early and stayed, obviously, for the most of the game. This was a game maybe that USC could break their spirit early, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But they showed out. They were heckling everyone from Caleb Williams to offensive lineman to Cliff Kingsbury, the return of the former Arizona Cardinals head coach. So everyone was getting it from the student section. But, yeah, it was loud down there. And I remember thinking to myself on several key plays where the crowd was just getting into it. And I was like, it is really loud down here on this field. But I also had the thought that if it's loud tonight, imagine how loud it's going to be in places like Notre Dame and Autzen. And obviously USC did not handle the noise all that well. Kind of reminds you of that Oregon State game last year, which was also really loud, even though they had just half a stadium. But the kudos to their student section for showing out. That's how loud it was. But yeah, definitely was impactful down there on the field. I could hear a lot of things and had trouble hearing after the game. That's how much buzz they were making.
I have far bigger concerns on the defensive side of the ball. I think the offense is so good that even if they make mistakes, they can overcome them, and we saw that the other night. But not being able to get the plays in early in the game in year 3 of Lincoln Riley and Caleb Williams being together, I thought that was a little bit concerning. The fact that you took a delay of game on that first series and some early timeouts, even into the second half. USC was taking timeouts because they had some issues getting plays in from the sideline to Williams. And when they did get them in, sometimes Caleb would change the play, and that elected. And the game clock ticking down. So I just thought that was interesting for a team that was coming off the bye and has been practicing with crowd noise for weeks. I was a little bit surprised to see this offense that really in the first 3 games at home had been putting the pedal to the floor, not really be ready for some of that crowd noise and not be ready getting plays in. I think that's kind of like a, introductory kind of issue. That's not like a thing that I would expect from this offense having troubles getting plays in. So that was certainly something that I looked at and I said, I don't love that. But again, I think the offense is so good, I'm not too concerned there.
Yeah, it's hard to be very critical. I asked that question a bunch because we're watching, and it seemed like once the play started, it almost didn't matter what it was going to work. It was just a handoff to Marshawn Lloyd. He was going to run for 15 yards. Or, if Caleb just drops back to pass, he'll find somebody open and throw it. But changing the play at the line, it just seemed like they were running out of time. They were calling timeouts. It didn't look very crisp. And I think it's similar to what we saw last year when USC, went on the road to Oregon State. And at the end of Oregon State was a better team than Arizona State. And I want to caution everybody, and I would love to get your guys' thoughts on this. There's a question that came up. I'm going to pull it up here, or a statement from John on YouTube. And I'm getting if you're watching on Facebook, I'm seeing the Facebook comments too, so please put those up there. We'd love to hear from our Facebook peeps too. But John said, I saw Notre Dame, Utah, Oregon, and Washington yesterday. The Trojan team that played last night in Tempe could not beat any of those teams going forward on their schedule. So this is where I would say, John, pump the brakes, okay? This is a game played by college kids. What you see for a 60-minute window of time is not the definition of what that team is. It's just an ever-changing, it's like some organism that's changing all the time. Did you watch Utah on the road last week? When Utah and Oregon are playing Baylor and Texas Tech, like both those teams probably should have lost. They're road environments. They just didn't look that good. Oregon looks like world beaters. It was great. UCLA should have beat Utah. They didn't score a whole lot. But, if you're going to make this blanket statement that all these teams would beat USC, I just would disagree with that. First of all, it's going to be a different story. You're playing a team off a bye that just got blanked by a group of 5 team. Is the motivation going to be as high for USC? It should be, but is it really when they didn't even score a point? That ASU team was, I watched that game night and day. Kenny Dillingham took over play calling. It was a whole different kind of team. This was a feisty team. They came out trying to make something happen. And that doesn't happen all the time. Stanford, who USC absolutely debacled, just destroyed. And Lincoln Riley even brought this up in his press conference. USC's up 49-3. Does that mean Stanford is the worst team ever and USC is the best team ever? No, there's going to be some kind of in the middle. Stanford should have beat Arizona. Arizona hadn't beat, I didn't realize this. Arizona hadn't won on the farm since 2006. And they win by a point because Stanford kicked a field goal and down in inside the 10 instead of, when they were down by 4 instead of going for the touchdown, whatever it is. But Stanford looked like absolute garbage, and then they almost beat an Arizona team the next week. I wouldn't put all this stuff oh my God, USC didn't look amazing, so Notre Dame and everyone's better. We'll see. I thought Notre Dame looked pretty good. They're going to play like Duke. They might lose like Duke or something. Who knows? We don't. To make these kind of blanket statements that USC is this or that, and you're going to make it define this whole team based on 60 minutes in the desert where there's all these other factors and stuff going on. I just would caution you to do that. Pump the brakes a little bit. There's my rant. If we have any thoughts there.
I would say I agree with your initial overall theme of that you shouldn't do blanket statements for obviously a game 4 games into the season and it defines the whole season. Because, yes, these are college kids and everything is always changing and constant. You can look around college football and see a lot of teams struggle on the road and, maybe just have a bad week. Whatever it may be, whether they came in there taking them lightly. You're right. This was looked like a very different Arizona State team from the one that got blanked by Fresno State. You had Kenny Dillingham calling plays. You had a QB that they could prepare for to attack USC's offense instead of going down to their 4th guy in the second half of the game. So those factors do change. And I agree with Lincoln Riley that road games in college especially are super hard to pull out because you are dealing with college kids who are traveling on short notice. They have all these things going on. They're not professionals. They have all these things going on. So there's so many factors that can determine what kind of team comes out. And obviously USC, the USC team that came out there in Tempe wasn't the best team that we've seen. So that's why I'm agreeing with you on the blanket statements. But I still saw things from the defense that makes me pause and go, hey, this is a concern for further down in the season when you get to this brutal back half that includes Washington, Utah, Notre Dame, Oregon, those things that happen against Arizona State. If you do play those things against any of those teams, you're losing that game, and there's no other way to say that. So, yes, you can't make a blanket statement because things change all the time with college kids and going on the road, but there are concerning things you saw in that game, and we talked about it, how this defense is a process, and we're learning every week about it, and I think we learned some not great things in this game. So you have to look at it like, okay, this is a thing that makes me pause and say, hey, this team is going to get to the playoff, or this team is going to run the table or something like that.
I made a whole bunch of blanket statements on our Thursday show after I watched Arizona State lose to Fresno State. Definitely learned my lesson on that. Agree with both you guys. You can't make the blanket statements. But, Chris, to what you said about the concerns, how can you not be after this game? USC last year, they missed 156 total tackles, which was number 120 in the country. And against ASU, missing 14, it was reminiscent of a year ago. I thought a really good offensive play caller like Kenny Dillingham is. Good offensive play callers can scheme guys wide open and scheme good run plays against Alex Grinch coached defenses. And good OCs, they can do that against other defenses too, but it's more consistent against Alex Grinch. That first touchdown that Cam Scatabo had, Alex Grinch comes out a couple weeks ago and tells us on run plays, we want it to look like blitz. So USC, they're so aggressive. Everyone knows they're going to be aggressive on a run play. And what does Dillingham call? He says, Scatabo, take the carry. They're going to blitz, run to the left, and you'll walk in for a touchdown. And that's exactly what happened. On a couple third and longs, Arizona State saw something on tape, and they rushed the ball. USC wasn't disciplined in the rush lanes, and they're able to pick up first downs on third and long running the ball, which that's obviously a no-no against anyone, never mind an Arizona State team that had been shut out the last 6 quarters of play before this USC game. So I think if you look at my Twitter feed, I might have been a little maybe too negative in this game, but I was just so surprised at USC not really having a sense of urgency earlier in the game, coming out slow, being sloppy, and then defensively, I just thought a lot of the mistakes you saw last year you saw in this game, whereas the Stanford game, Stanford stinks, but the USC defense looked way better. Felt like they took a small step back and maybe even a somewhat large step back this week. Certainly concerning on my end.
Yeah, I think that's fair that there's concerns. It's just when people are just like, oh my God,
they're never going to beat this team now. Yeah,
this is the worst team ever, and like, no. What I can tell you is they had the worst tackling performance against Arizona State of the year, but in general, the defense is better than last year, and they almost made the playoff with a really bad defense last year. How good is the defense? They're probably not as good as we saw maybe like the first 3 games, or at least most of the second and third game. And I don't think they're going to be quite as bad as what we saw Saturday night. But, somewhere in the middle. But they're going to be playing better teams, better offenses. Can you get some stops? They had a 3-and-out to start the game, and they didn't have another one. One of the things I've really liked about this defense is they forced a lot more 3-and-outs. They got more stops. We didn't see as many of that. And we were seeing a little bit more of that, give up the third and longs. Some weird stuff. But Kenny Dillingham was definitely pulling out all the stops, and it's no excuse. Like, you need to be able to stop something like that. But the weird kind of punt formation thing where, the first time USC doesn't have someone to field the punt, and Scatabo punts it down there, and it's a great punt. And then the second time, that you run it and get the first down. They just didn't handle a lot of that stuff right. And I think why there's some parallels to what happened at Oregon State. They look a lot better on the road after the Oregon State game, I would say. But that was a situation that you sort of kind of needed to get that first test. So we'll see. Was this the first test and they look better? I know someone had a question about, if they probably still beat Colorado playing like that. Like, I don't think Colorado's all that good, but they're way better than last year. They're just still going to be, it's going to be there's going to be some difficulties there. So I would just caution saying like, oh my God, this is the worst, blah blah blah. That I wouldn't say that.
Can I add one more thing?
Yeah, of course.
I did want to say that on top of all this, we're talking about the defense. The offense was obviously clearly out of sync for the most part. So
right.
They probably left at least, what would you say? It felt like 3 touchdowns off the board just with their issues. And obviously they gifted the Arizona State offense with that fumble in the first quarter. So if let's say you tack on 3 more touchdowns to USC's final output and take that touchdown off the board, we're here talking about a very different outlook of the game. But we knew the defense wasn't going to be elite. They needed to be good enough. And if you're able to score 49, 50 plus points and your defense gives up 21 points, you're taking that. So the stack wasn't built correctly because the offense was just a little bit off and not up to their elite standards. But to still put up 42 with just that little tweak off, that hair off, is still impressive. But it would look a lot better if they didn't have so many issues early in that game and obviously gifted them a touchdown.
Yeah, and I would say when you're talking about a 5 touchdown spread, which that's what you're basing success on at this point, because they're supposed to win by 34.5, and you win by 14. There were some weird plays, and I think Lincoln Riley brought this up too. That the punt thing. USC gets a touchdown taken off the board, and they don't score after that. With the pass interference in the end zone, there was some weird stuff. But I was talking to Chris Cartman, who covers the Sun Devils for 24/7 Sports, Sun Devil Source, and USC also they converted a 3rd and 20. That scored a touchdown on that drive. That could be points that USC didn't score. So there was a bunch of plays that sort of went, could have gone either way. USC's offense looked like they were going to just score a bunch when they kind of got, when they got things going. But yeah, it doesn't always go, super smooth. This was a team that was certainly overmatched, but they were definitely fighting a lot harder than what we had seen in the past. So I think someone said I have rosy colored glasses on. Hold on, let me put it up. Ben's wig. Ben, does you have a wig? I love that. I would not say that. I'm just trying to talk people off the ledge. If I thought they were just a terrible team, I would tell you they're a terrible team. I feel they're a really good team. I just don't think you can say, oh my God, I didn't like what I saw. They're the worst. Or when it was 49-3, they're the best team in the country. I think it's got to be somewhere in between. I think we're kind of agreement.
Going back to that initial YouTube comment too, I think it's important to say too, the Pac-12 I think is better than I thought after this weekend. And who's the team at the top who didn't have the best game? It's USC. I thought Washington, they played Cal, but you blink, they had 52 points. Oregon, what they did to Colorado, everyone saw that. Utah, what their defense did to UCLA. All of a sudden, that game looks harder than I anticipated, and I know USC has had all kinds of issues with Utah. So I think that's definitely part of it too. And we don't want to make those blanket statements, but when USC doesn't look very good and then they have all these teams who look really good on Saturday on their schedule coming up, I understand the concerns, especially with the way the USC defense played.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just want Connor. Do you want to apologize to the Arizona State offense?
Yes. Sorry to the Arizona State offense. For people who didn't tune in Thursday, that first half against Fresno State and the whole game, they were just putrid. And I didn't put enough stock in having your quarterback healthy for the full week and being able to game plan. And even though it was a third-string quarterback, Kenny Dillingham, what he did with Drew Pine was really impressive. And Lincoln Riley talked about it. I should have listened to him. When you have that week to game plan with your quarterback, it's a lot different than having a fourth-string guy coming off the bench who you didn't game plan with at all. So swing and a miss by me on that one. Sorry, ASU.
And just real quick, we're getting a lot of transitive property in the chat. Like, oh, yes, we all know Arizona State got shut out by Fresno State. And you're like, look how good Oregon is. Okay, Texas Tech is 1-3. They beat something called Tarleton State. That's their only win. They lost to Wyoming.
They almost knocked off Oregon.
They were beat. They should have beat Oregon. That was they get a pick six at the end. I mean, it was crazy. It's just a road game. It's different. College is different every week. If you're going to look at the worst thing that USC did, which was Saturday night, and go, this is the way it is all the time. That's what I'm saying. Just kind of caution yourself a little bit.
The thing I don't like, though, about the transitive property with Florida State and with Texas, they almost lost to Wyoming. Florida State, they almost lost to BC. Texas beat Alabama on the road. Florida State beat Clemson, beat LSU at a neutral field. Clemson's game was on the road. At least they have something to fall back on, whereas USC, they haven't had that good win yet. It's not their fault. They haven't played anyone. But with those teams trying to say, okay, USC is on the same level as these teams, they underachieved against a team that they should have played better against. I would just like to see going forward, USC prove it before we compare them to Texas and we compare them to Florida State.
All right. Well, we got like 3 callers in the queue already. Is there? You don't want to take a call?
No,
yet, Chris?
I'm just saying they're going to be spicy. I feel it.
Good. Let them rip.
We could jump in. We'll do some calls, then we'll come back to them in a little bit. Let's bring in our first caller. Welcome to Tunnel Vision. Thanks for joining us. Who are you? Where are you from?
David Chad, USC grad here again. How's my audio?
Sounds all right. I'll turn you up a little bit. Yeah, thanks for calling in.
All right, so my next greatest question of all time. So I'm an engineered numbers guy. Shout out to #Viterbi, of course. But my question is, should we go for 2 after every touchdown unless the score requires us to go for 1? Feel free to check Google or #ChatGPT, but college extra points are successful around 94% of the time. Mathematically speaking, if we are successful half of that number, 47%, remember that number, 47%, then we should go for 2. The college 2-point conversion success rate is around 45%. So while that's lower than the 47% target, I'd add around 8% for this generational offense / Caleb, and maybe 2% for practicing 2-point conversions day in and day out. So in summary, you got 45% college average plus 8% for Caleb plus 2% for consistent practicing equals 55%, which is greater than the 47% threshold. So what do you think about going for 2 after every touchdown unless the score requires us to go for 1? You know the drill, baby. Shout out to Frank the Tank, Steven, Ron, and #Kyle. Let's go. Fight on. Woo!
All right. Thanks for the call there.
What a great call.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know how big into analytics you guys
I'm
are.
a writer specifically because I wanted to be a writer because I suck at math. But that being said, he convinced me that USC, yeah, I said it wrong, whatever. USC should go for, not every time, but they should definitely do more 2-point conversions.
We did see today the Packers went for 2 in an unconventional way, and then they end up beating the Saints. So for as much as I want to roll my eyes and be like, that call was not great. It was a great call, but, the substance of the call wasn't what I was expecting. Let's stick to the game. I think when you have this good of an offense, hear it out, but I don't think Lincoln Riley will do anything like that. You kind of have to, the high school coach who never punts, you kind of have to, if you're going to go for 2 every time, that's kind of who you are, and that's not who Lincoln Riley is.
Didn't that end in disaster?
Yeah, he got a college job, fired after 1 year.
Did he get fired really quick?
Yeah, 'cause in college, you got to punt.
You have to punt sometimes. I feel like you have to be, I think as long as you have a philosophy, what is your philosophy? If it's whatever it is, you're sticking to it, and that's what the identity of your team is. I remember when Lane Kiffin was there and they were doing swinging gate, weird extra points sometimes that might go for you're trying to keep people off balance. I think Oregon kind of did that back in the day, I think Oregon did it with a real identity. When USC was doing it, it was kind of screwing around. But if Lincoln Riley just decided I cranked the numbers, we're going for 2, you're go for it. But I think you just have to be, that has to be who you are. I don't think that's his identity, so you probably wouldn't do it. But I like the call.
They did get one last game.
They did get one last game, and I did watch Millikan High School a game a couple weeks back. They went for 2 every time they scored a touchdown, and it was so demoralizing to the other side because they could not stop it. Now, obviously, that's high school, and when you have a stronger team, it's
and when you don't have a kicker.
And when you don't have a kicker, obviously, it just makes more sense to go for 2. But if that's your philosophy, can you imagine going for 2 in Oregon and then not getting it? You're really kind of shifting the momentum or kicking it back to the Ducks after getting a big score or whatever. So, yeah you definitely have to pick and choose. I wouldn't be all or nothing, go for 2.
Chip Kelly's Oregon teams, I can't tell you how many times they were up 8-0. You know, like that was a common thing they did. We got a super chat, so thank you on our YouTube channel, James. Why have we seen such little improvement at linebacker?
Great question. I can dive into that. I think your defensive line rotations are really good. The secondary rotations I like. I think outside of Kalen Bullock, he's a great player. You have a lot of good players in the secondary, guys who can be great. Coming out of this game, though, what's the gaping hole? It's the linebacking core and the rotations there. I think Mason Cobb looked very rusty coming off of an injury. I wouldn't judge him fully off of this performance, but I don't think he looked great. Tackett Curtis, a couple sacks. Those were later in the game. It's clear he's still learning. Eric Gentry played well, had that key missed tackle on the late Scatabo touchdown, though, as well. So I think the learning experience from the coaching in this game is that we got to figure out these linebacker rotations. Maybe they were hoping that the 3 guys they thought would be the best at the beginning of the season, who all played against Arizona State, it would work itself out, but I don't think that happened last night, and I think that's a major question mark. Rajon Davis doesn't play a snap after getting a lot of credit by the coaching staff for what he's been able to do. So why hasn't it improved? That's a great question. I think just by upgrading with Cobb and Curtis, like the coaching staff hoped hadn't worked, and they're going to need to go with a plan B, it looks like right now.
Yeah.
Kudos to you for saying that Cobb was going to start over this game, even though I was very hesitant of how much he would actually play. He ended up playing
the most snaps of anyone,
which seems
that was a surprise.
Wild to me that a linebacker coming off a soft tissue issue plays the most snaps out of everyone, and Rajon Davis doesn't play a single snap in this game. That just seemed bonkers to me.
Especially when they weren't playing well. You know, like if they're lighting it on fire and things are great, lighting it up, I guess lighting it on fire is probably not a good expression, but, you know, doing really well.
I like it, lighting it on fire.
Then, okay, Rajon, you know, sorry that the other linebackers are doing great, but Mason Cobb, if you look at his PFF grades, I know there's more to life than PFF grades, but he was not graded very well in this one, and it wasn't a pretty performance for him. Again, he was out for a couple of weeks. I don't want to totally rule him out the rest of the way and say he stinks. No blanket statements. He's coming back from an injury. We can't do that to him. But he didn't really play that well, and I don't think anyone would disagree with that.
All right, our buddy Dave in Iowa is calling in. Let's bring him in.
The
legend for a brief call. Dave, what's up, Dave? How you doing?
Hey guys, Dave from Iowa as usual. First off, in terms of John's statement, I think what he's saying is that, like, you know, he said the Trojan team that played last night in Tempe could not beat any of those teams. I think he primarily meant, like, okay, that in terms of that setting, you know, if in terms of, like, you know, the production both offensively and defensively couldn't beat those teams. I'm not saying, I mean, I don't think he's saying that this team's terrible. I'm just saying, I just think that, you know, he's just explaining how, you know, offensive defensive production in last night's game would not equate to a dub in the following games that he said. But I just wanted to say, in terms of me watching the game last night, me personally, holy cow, I kind of thought I was watching the Varsity Blues game, and, you know, Caleb Williams, the defense, almost cost me a district title there. But it, you know, in terms of if you get that reference, but I've been saying it all this time, Lincoln Riley in the defense, he can't get it together. He needs to focus on it. You know, Grinch, I don't care. Take timeouts, do what it takes to make sure that, you know, everyone's in sync or whatever. That's just my thoughts.
All right. Well, thanks, Dave, from Iowa on that one. Yeah, I mean, Lincoln Riley did say in the offseason he was going to be more involved in the defense. But if you look at, I mean, I think people have, there's a sensitivity towards the defense, towards Alex Grinch and all that. You know, somebody scores a touchdown and you're just going to get a bunch of fire Grinch tweets, like just going to come out there. But I still think the defense is better than what we saw last year. Now, it's early on. USC's defense got really, you know, bad towards the end when they were playing some of the better teams. They got better teams coming up. And we'll see if, you know, we thought 2 years ago the defense was as bad as we've ever seen. Then last year sort of rivaled that a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I think, you know, I think the jury's still out. I think the defense is better. We just don't know how much better at this point.
If you felt like on Saturday you were watching the 2022 defense, it's because basically you were. RJ Arbedia did a great breakdown of the defensive numbers from Saturday, and USC's defense in 2022 for their season average allowed 2.8 points per drive, which takes out, you know, garbage time, and, you know, breaks it down to that metric. USC's points per drive on Saturday was 2.8. It was the exact same as their average from last season. So if you felt like you were watching the 2022 defense, it's because you basically were.
Yeah, and to add to that, last year USC gave up 4.98, so pretty much 5 yards per rush, and Scatabo was just over 5 yards a rush. It looked similar to last season. They didn't stop the run effectively.
Yeah. We got a super chat from Slap Happy. I'm not sure what this means.
Oh, no.
Pair character turning around, waving his hand, saying, "Hey, you," while lowering his glasses.
Pair character?
Did he mean Bear Alexander, maybe? Was he?
I can't see it. You want me to
Yeah,
come over
it
there
says
and look at
pair
it?
character,
Want me to
like-
come over there and look at it?
No, you don't have to look at it. I'm just like, whatever. But it was
I think you got
it was a super chat.
I think
So
it's an
put it-
emoji, and you just
Ah.
and I think you don't have the power to see the emoji. It's a pair waving. And I think it's just
I
saying
think
that
he's just
to
saying
you.
hi.
Yeah.
But like, can you see the pair, or are you reading?
No, I'm reading
Yeah,
the
yeah.
words. Yeah.
So it's
You
just
sound
he's
so
just
old right
saying
now.
hi. So Slap Happy, hello to you.
Well, thanks. So that's how the kids say hello. They
pretty
write
funny.
pair character.
Yeah,
like
it's a-
instead of-
But no one's writing pair characters.
he wrote that. Literally, it was written down. It was not.
But I think you're just operating off of an older computer.
Okay. What? Do you want me to mute you?
Because on mine, the pair.
I see the pair character.
Can you
Oh.
back me up?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so
It's an
not-
emoji.
okay, I'm not looking. I'm just how the sausage is made. I'm bringing it up on the content moderation thing, like it's the comment moderation. Like that's how I put it up on
Slap
the screen.
Happy just said that. This is just say hi.
Ryan, an emoji
Hello.
is a visual representation.
I
of
know
an
what
idea.
emoji.
Oh, okay.
Should I mute you too? Yes, but so here's the thing. So if you are putting comments on YouTube or Facebook, we cannot put emojis on the screen for whatever reason. It only gets, and I've never seen them. Usually it gives us little like special characters. I've never had it like write out what the emoji is. So that's kind of interesting.
Just
That it
send him
did that.
super chats of emojis, so he has to read out
Yeah.
the.
I have to
silly
read all the
little
emojis
animation.
and stuff. Yeah.
Bear dancing and hula skirt.
That's good stuff. Okay, let's go. We got another caller here. Hello, caller. Thanks for being on Tunnel Vision. What's your name? Where are you from?
Hey, it's Nick from Virginia. Usually I'm listening to you guys from Trader Joe's, but on account that it's 10:30 p.m. in Virginia, I'm going to have to call you from my apartment this time. So
Okay.
shameless sponsorship plug. I wanted to bring up maybe three things that I think anybody who's on the peristyle who covers USC, this is extremely important. Last night, I don't think I saw a team like Arizona State roll out an offensive game plan so out of the ordinary, I think, since Boise State played Oklahoma in that Fiesta Bowl. I mean, some of those plays were ingenious, but it was clear that Arizona State was throwing the entire kitchen sink at this defense all night long. And they didn't cope well all the time, but they did get 8 sacks. We're talking like this defense last night gave up 500 yards of offense, which they didn't. That was Washington's defense, by the way. That's a conversation I think we need to have later this week. Second, anybody who covers Lincoln Riley and understands, you need to go back to when he first became a head coach. Even with his best teams at Oklahoma, with Heisman winners, guys, maybe not as good as Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams is probably his best quarterback he's ever had. But Iowa State always gave Lincoln Riley problems. It did not matter who their quarterback was. It did not matter how good their offense was. It did not matter how improved their defense was. It didn't matter. Home, away, on the move, it didn't matter. Matt Campbell, for some reason, played Oklahoma so
Okay, Nick, we got to move this
well.
along. Okay, this is going a long time. You got a third point?
Okay, well,
Sorry.
I'll just finish it up with that. I appreciate it.
All right, thanks very much, Nick. Sorry, we kind of like 2-minute calls here. So, yeah, I mean, what do you guys think? There was the kitchen sink being thrown at USC, but you still have to respond to that. You still have to kind of make some stops there. But any thoughts on Nick's call?
Just don't think Oklahoma's defenses have ever been exceptional. So, yeah, Iowa State played them tough. You're going to have tough games. I think I might be wrong on this, so someone can comment, but I think the Oklahoma defense was the best when it was Lincoln Riley's first year as the head coach. That was the year they, I believe, made the playoff, and it was the closest game in the playoff. I think. I'll have to double check. This is bad radio. I apologize. From there, they got blown out in some of these playoff games. So I think the questions about the Lincoln Riley defense, and maybe that wasn't his point, just the point was that a team like Arizona State can play it close. It happened with Iowa State. I'm just thinking in the grand scheme of things, when Lincoln Riley has lost the 13 losses that he has in his career as a head coach, they're giving up over 40 points a game. So, I don't care if it's Iowa State, I don't care if it's Arizona State. There's a common theme, and it's giving up a lot of points and defeats.
I thought he made a great point that I forgot to mention about how
The kitchen sink.
Yeah, Dillingham and that Arizona State offense was throwing whatever they could, even making up stuff in the moment. When Scatabo mentioned
That's
about that punt, non-punt, Lincoln Riley even was like, I have no idea what to call that thing. So yeah. It's like getting an alley fight. Just act crazy. No one wants to fight crazy, and that's kind of what it felt like. They were just like doing whatever they had to do to move the ball, score, whatever. It did not matter. Even if it looked ridiculous, even if they just made it up on the spot, they were doing whatever they could to move the ball. And yeah, for the most part, yeah, it worked. They stayed in this game because of that.
Shout out to Christian Pierce too for recovering the onside kick. Things could have been a lot worse.
Yeah,
he didn't do that.
And and Drew Pine, Lincoln Riley talked about this. Like last week against Fresno State, they had to use like 4 different quarterbacks. Guys were hurt. No one was prepared. Drew Pine was coming in this one knowing it was going to be his job. And Lincoln Riley talked about, you just have a better game plan knowing this when you come in. Like, he's going to be the quarterback. So I think there's just more stability, from that, knowing that he's going to be the guy coming in. And I think that's something that, certainly impacted what was going on. But Nick also brought up some good points about, they did generate 8 sacks. They had 14 tackles for loss. They forced a couple turnovers, and they could have had a couple more. So, I wouldn't say it's all bad on the defensive side, but there was definitely concerns. The yards per play, the bad tackling. There were certainly concerns, but there was also some good things that happened there too.
At the end of the game, the pass rush was great, and I think that's, besides Kalen Bullock in that secondary, who's just a ball hawk, I think the strength of the defense will be that pass rush and that defensive line. So that was certainly encouraging. You just would have liked to have seen some of those plays a little earlier when Drew Pine wasn't dropping back to pass on every play because they were down 2 scores and they needed to move the ball quickly. When Arizona State was doing normal things, they were still pretty effective. So, yeah, the kitchen sink stuff, that was crazy. You can throw that out. You won't see that every week. The normal stuff for ASU was working too, and I think that's why people are kind of like, what the heck?
Yeah. James says, where do you have SC on the Podcast of Champions rankings now? I haven't done it. I haven't re-ranked. We'll probably do that tomorrow. But Washington might take over the number 1 spot. I think it would probably be Washington, USC,
Oregon,
maybe Oregon and Utah up there. But Washington State could, they could make an argument too. Like they looked really good. They were blowing out Oregon State until they weren't. So okay, I think we have one more call. Actually, we might have 2 more whole calls. Holy crap. Okay, let's do our next call. This looks like Dave. Wait.
From Iowa.
Is this Dave in Iowa again? Maybe not. Okay. Oh, no, this is... Yeah, okay. Let's go down. We have John coming on. Hey, John.
Hey, guys. How you doing tonight? Listen, why did we bring Dorian Singer onto this team? Who's the guy that came with Lincoln from Oklahoma?
Mario Williams.
If he drops another pass, he takes off and he keeps running before the ball is getting there. He was doing that last year, and he's doing it again this year. That runs to me exactly. I just go crazy when I see that. I can't take that, guys.
I totally understand that call and being frustrated about it, but I think the wide receivers are the strength of your team, and if a few mistakes happen here or there, you just got to live with it because that group is so talented, and that group, by and large, has made a heck of a lot more good plays than they have bad plays. I was surprised Mario Williams stayed on the field, though, for so long. His third drop, it was like, all right, maybe we give someone else a chance. I don't know who would play his position. Maybe would it be like a Mekhi Lemon who would come in and they're not quite comfortable? Is it true freshman?
It would be Rillick Brown.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, he's probably redshirting, so.
Yeah, that's like, it would be Rillick Brown. That's who it would be to come in there. So, but it does feel like Mario was. I wonder if it's because there's so much talent in the room, he's pressing a little bit. Because if you're only getting minimal looks throughout the Tiger games, you have to spread it out. You're trying to do too much.
Yeah,
it kind of feels like that.
It's an interesting dynamic in that room. And if you haven't checked out our Tunnel Vision show from a little bit earlier today, Connor and I both interviewed Brenden Rice. Huge game from Rice, 7 catches, 133 yards, 2 touchdowns. I'll put up a screenshot from what we saw from Brenden today. It was cool to see him and talk about the receiver room. Whenever we talk to any of these guys, it's very unselfish. He's fine if he catches, one pass or it goes other places. So I don't feel like it's one of those things where they're just pulling people off or they're still, Caleb Williams finds different guys. They're going to spread around. You got one guy that's 13 catches, one that has 12, another that has 12. There's a lot of similar things. And, yesterday was, Rice's day, but he had been catching touchdowns, but not like a lot of volume. And last night there was a lot of volume there. So I feel like that's one of those things where Mario Williams could have a big game down the road. Yeah, I think the drops and stuff are concerning, but that's just one of those things where I don't think it's in Lincoln Riley's DNA or Caleb Williams to not we're not using this guy anymore. I'm sure there's a point where it will be, but I think he's been a big part of this, and I think that we're going to keep using him going forward.
It is interesting. It looks to me through these first 4 games that a clear top 3 has emerged, and it's Taj Washington, Brenden Rice, and then Zachariah Branch. So if you're a Dorian Singer, you intended to transfer thinking you'd break into that first group, and he still could. There's a lot of season left. He gets a lot of snaps. Right now, though, it looks like Dennis Simmons says we're going to play 7 or 8, but there's clearly 3 guys who have separated from the pack, and shout out to Zachariah Branch, a true freshman, doing that. That's really impressive.
I think Singer will be okay. He's still a all Pac-12 caliber guy. Still trying to get on the kind of the same motion and rhythm as Caleb Williams. He was coming over, learning a new quarterback. I think he's bound to have a monster game, and then that's gonna kind of set him off.
Yeah, got another caller. This looks like Woody. Hey, Woody, you're on with Tunnel Vision. How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing good. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, you can.
All right, sounds good. Hey, first and foremost, I just want to say, do not count out a hostile environment. Like I mentioned in the chat, in 2017, Ohio State went to Iowa City, played the Hawkeyes. They absolutely got destroyed. They were like number 3 in the country at the time. It was like 55-24. Ohio State finished ranked like number 2 that year, or 12-2 that year. But anyway, I'm not surprised as to what we're seeing with the defense. This is a Riley coached team. I feel like his strategy is just to outscore everyone that he plays. And I guess my question to you guys is, do you think that his offense can win us a title? And if you don't, what are the reasons? Thank you.
All right. Thanks for the call, Woody.
If everything goes perfectly, I wouldn't say no to that. Nothing's perfect, though. I think if the defense looks like it did last night, your margin for error on offense is really tiny. And I also think, too, the USC's first 3 opponents are combined, I think, 2-11. And I was guilty of this as anyone. After the Stanford game, I was like, yeah, I think USC, they have a higher ceiling than I thought. Stanford just stinks. So
false barometer.
Yeah. Again, another blanket statement by me, kind of. So to answer the question, I think yes would be my answer, but it takes an offense, a defense, and a good special teams unit too. And you got a great offense. Still questions about the other 2 units.
Yeah, I think this offense is good enough to take you there, and you got to have the defense be better than last year. I think it is. We just don't know how much. Now, USC's offense wasn't really in sync. Like you're not going to see USC's offense kind of struggle all the time. It's going to happen sometimes. They did. They had some weird mistakes, fumbling the snap, giving Arizona State the easy first touchdown. Like we mentioned, the touchdown being called off the board. There was just some weird stuff. But, Caleb Williams is capable of making these crazy good plays. You're going to score a bunch of points. I mean, he still accounted for 5 touchdowns. I think this is good enough. We saw Ohio State, nearly beat Georgia last year. It was a missed field goal, right? I mean, they don't have like a great defense, and great offenses are beating great defenses. So I think if you have a great offense, you have a chance. If you're Iowa and you have a great defense and you get 4 first downs versus Penn State, like you're never going to win. You're not going to win a conference, division, let alone a national championship. But if you have some crazy good offense, you have a puncher's chance with anybody. So that's where I'd go with that. Why don't we go to some of the questions we have, some of these star questions here. I'll start pulling them up. We got a bunch. If you're in the chat for YouTube or Facebook, I will try to start pulling up some of your questions. First one, in Khartoum, what do you think of the missed snap that nailed Caleb in the nether regions? I haven't seen that before.
Oof. I said this isn't like you're playing with your nephews and they accidentally hike one, a soft one in there. This is a Division I center hiking that ball. So you know that was some real pain going on.
Caleb just retweeted it with 3 laughing emojis, so I agree with his emotion now that it doesn't hurt him anymore. Very funny. I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, it was one of those things that was part of the general theme was they weren't in sync pre-snap. It was a lot of pre-snap crazy stuff going on. I felt like it was one of those things where after obviously Lincoln Riley's forgot more about football than I'll ever know. But when you're seeing that, you're just like, here's a play, just run it. And don't change. I don't care if they're lined up to stop it, just run it anyway, because it was getting so confusing and you're trying to call timeout and get a false start, get snapped. It seemed like it caused a lot of problems, but that was more of an indication of they just weren't able to get things going pre-snap. We'll see. They're gonna have to do that because it's gonna be loud in Colorado. All right, next one up. Let's go with, let's see, what do we have? Oscar, if USC plays Colorado like they played ASU, will they lose the game? We kind of mentioned this already. I would say no. I don't think
Colorado's defense is worse than ASU's.
Yeah. Right, yeah. I still think they win. I still think it gets a little tense at times, but I still think they win.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where if USC was just all right, all we're going to do is run the ball now, they would have just run the ball all over ASU, and they could do the same thing with Colorado. It's a lot of this is style points is what you're looking for. You're trying to do things a certain way. But I think the environment's going to be really tough in Colorado. But no, I don't think I mean, we'll see, but I don't think Colorado is a great team. And USC's got a lot more talent, so we'll see. All right. Next up, we got this is Ryan. Oh. Nice name. What worked defensively in the fourth, and why can't we do it for 3 quarters?
Drew Pine dropping back every time, and USC knowing that ASU was going to pass more often than they were going to run. The element of surprise was totally taken away, and Jamil Muhammad, Bear Alexander, Solomon Byrd, pass rushing against some reserve offensive linemen, that's a recipe for success.
Yeah, I would certainly there. And when we were watching early, you're talking about the kitchen sink stuff. Kenny Dillingham's a really good play caller. And the fact that he wasn't calling plays, a lot of people were tweeting that that's criminal, that they hired Bo Baldwin, who was great at Eastern Washington when he was running that program. Wilcox brings him to Cal, and they're absolutely awful on offense. And why did Kenny Dillingham hire him? And why did he let him call the plays when the whole reason you're 32 years old, the reason you're hired is to call plays? And now he was, and you saw the difference there. But I thought they really took advantage of some of the things that, Bear Alexander would, get a lot of push and cause some disruption. And I think that Arizona State saw that, and they kind of worked away from the pressure early on, so USC couldn't be as aggressive because they were sort of countering and going wearing gaps. I thought they did a really good job taking advantage of what USC was trying to do pressure-wise up front, and then kind of switching it on you. And then USC had to kind of change it up, and then they weren't playing, I don't think USC was playing as aggressive as they wanted to be for a while because ASU was able to counter a lot of what their moves were. So I thought Kenny Dillingham called a great game. Yeah.
I wonder if that's what Lincoln told him briefly in his ear when they met at halftime or after the game. Call your own damn plays.
Maybe. Lincoln was pissed, though, so I don't know if he said anything.
He didn't seem too happy. We got a Facebook comment from Spencer, or a question. Does anyone know if it's the scheme, play calling, or discipline, besides the tackling, that the defense has a brain fart? Fight on.
I would say it's discipline and scheme. I kind of feeling scheme. I had someone text me that I trust with football that they thought the linebackers might just be confused. Like they might be too what they're being asked to do is kind of not simple enough. Not saying they're not smart, but it just might be too complex.
That will not make people happy. That is a big talking point for years.
Yeah, and then discipline, because I could teach Connor perfect tackling for like 2 months straight, and then he just goes out there and just launches with shoulders. Is that on me or is that on Connor for not just having up Connor or just wanting to headshot everything or lead with the shoulder, which is what Lincoln kind of said. He saw a lot of shoulders out there and guys going for the big hit.
I do question what they're being taught too, because on some of the rush lane stuff, it's obvious that they're being taught just get up the field, and then that, if you're trying to go that quickly, and even if you stay in your lane, if you get up too fast, you can
wash yourself out.
Yeah, you can wash yourself out of the play, and you're going too quick. One little juke move can beat you. So I don't know. I wish I was a smarter football person to really diagnose, watch the film, this is wrong and this is wrong. I go by what I see, and I'm not this 40-year-old. I don't know why I said 40. I'm not this guy who has watched film for years and knows they're doing this defense and the corner did this. You should have done this. I just kind of see what I see, and I think some of the rush lane discipline, they're in the right lanes, they're just going too fast and washing themselves out, like Chris said.
We have a super chat from Moneybag Mansford.
Woo!
You don't
have
the cha-chings. You have to do it yourself.
Oh, wait, I have the cha-ching. I could pull it up here.
Once you put the code in.
I got to put the code in and stuff.
And I'm trying to stall. And I actually met him. I don't know if I said this.
You met him?
Yeah, he called me out at the when I was at the game. I think it was the Stanford game. But I met him. He's real.
He's a real person.
Yeah, he smells like wealth. He exudes wealth.
Well, he said, I'll be at the Colorado game. My question is, will there be a meetup? Also, when is the 2-star merch dropping?
I'm building the store. It's pretty much done. I have some samples coming just so I can make sure it's the best quality for our listeners, but very soon. Very, very soon, Moneybags.
And for meetup wise, it's going to be the three of us going. We're going in Friday late afternoon, and then we're going to come back after the game. So we could potentially do a Friday meetup, maybe somewhere in Boulder.
Not super late.
Not super late. But we haven't done it yet. We had a nice one Friday night in Old Town Scottsdale, which was a lot of fun. So thanks to everyone if you showed up for that. Appreciate it. That was a good time. But yeah, I'd like to try to do one, Manfred. So that would be great to meet you.
Tell him which one. He'll buy the restaurant and then flip it 3 weeks later for profit.
I assume he's going to look like Scrooge McDuck or something, right? Is that what the thing? Okay.
Yeah, exactly what you're thinking is what it is.
Nice. Dennis on Facebook. We are now 70th ranked overall defense against 4 bottom feeders. They have a combined record of 3-14. Can we talk about this rather than sunshine pumping? There's no sunshine pumping here, Dennis. Did you see how many points USC scored? That's a huge factor in these games. They've scored crap little points because they're really good. They have the Heisman Trophy winner. I don't know what you want sunshine pumping. They're really freaking good on offense. They made a whole bunch of stops against some bad teams.
Does it matter if you win the national championship 49-0 or 49-28?
Or 49-48. It doesn't matter. But thanks, Dennis. We appreciate that. This is, let's see, Gixxer Squid. Why did that reporter ask the odd question at the very end of the post-game press conference? Okay, so we're in Arizona. There was a lot of Arizona talk. People that cover Arizona sports, not just ASU, and they were in so there was questions about Brenden Rice because he played high school ball there. Cliff Kingsbury is on USC's team, who was the Cardinals coach. There was talk about, the Cardinals tanking for, although they won today, so I think they're hurting their chances, but for Caleb. And Caleb addressed this in practice last week. Is that correct?
I don't know if it was last week.
Or 2 weeks ago?
I think it was a month ago.
Yeah.
It's been a long time.
It was the week. It was the day before the NFL season started because I had my fantasy football draft right after.
Okay. So this is already brought up. So this was just an Arizona guy bringing this up. And Lincoln Riley's expression was pretty priceless if you watch the video we put up there.
He was not happy with that question. And
yeah, it was dumb.
Wasn't the Arizona reporter, I don't want to rag on him, but wasn't he kind of proud of the question? like after he was kind of patting himself.
I'm
on
gonna
the
do
back.
my Lincoln Riley impression.
Oh,
of that.
this is awesome.
Can you ask the question
Sure, I'll.
in the same manner that he asked it to?
Yeah. So for people who haven't heard,
This is our
the guy
reenactment.
took a long time
This is our
to.
reenactment. So let's go.
Caleb, with you being here in Arizona, your father said to GQ, if the Cardinals have the number 1 pick, you might not elect to go to the NFL draft. My question, I guess, is if the Cardinals get the number 1 pick, would you go to the NFL draft?
Nice.
And then he said yes, but then he didn't mean yes. He said yeah, and then gave his.
Yeah, it's like
robot
we got 8 more games at least, and maybe 3 more after that. And yeah, it was a really dumb question to end on, but that's
Watch the video, and someone should make a GIF out of it. Lincoln Riley's expression is effing hilarious.
It was a local Arizona reporter that did that. All right. Next up, we have Lamont. The game proved Rajon Davis should be starting. I think Lincoln Riley doesn't want to sit Cobb because of all the hype he came in with, especially after he was made a captain. What do you think?
That might be true, and Cobb came in with way more hype than Keon Bars, but they've shown that they're good with not playing Jack Sullivan a ton, and they're good with not playing Keon Bars. His snap counts have decreased every game. He only had 9 against Arizona State, so I'm sure the hype of Cobb plays into it, but at least the staff, they're not playing all the transfers. They've shown that if they haven't loved what they've seen from a few of these guys, they won't play. Cobb, though, certainly more hype than most of these guys, so that definitely plays a part in it. We'll see. I think what happens in the future is going to be really interesting. And I keep saying, what happens down the line, we'll see. They keep telling us by what they're doing. San Jose State, everyone's available. Who plays? Those 3. Last night, everyone's available. Who plays? It's those 3. I wonder when something different will happen.
Yeah.
I'm just still stunned that Rajon did not get
not even a
single snap. Usually when you see the big 0, it's like, is he suspended? Not saying he's suspended, but that's kind of to go from playing, even had a start. Obviously, I know there's injuries, but just 0 snaps in this game is just baffling to me.
That was very baffling. Yeah, and people are bringing it up. We're definitely, those questions always come up. We'll get to talk to Alex Grinch on Tuesday, so we'll find out what's going on there, or we'll try to, and let you know what we hear. ISJST. Do you think this is all caps? So I should I yell? Should I? Let's see.
Yeah.
Do you think padding Caleb's stats for the Heisman campaign is hindering USC's run game? I don't think you're padding stats if you let Miller Moss play the entire second half against Stanford. So you're not padding stats.
It does seem like, though, they want the ball in Caleb's hands.
Which I don't blame him. But, yeah, when Marshawn Lloyd's averaging over 10 yards per carry, and Lincoln Riley said last night, we probably should have ran him more or run him more. They definitely want I don't think they're stat padding, but it's obvious that Lincoln Riley, I think, feels the most comfortable when Caleb Williams has the ball, and maybe he should, because when they try to hand it off to Marshawn Lloyd early in the game, there was that bad fumble, and Lloyd took full responsibility for it, so maybe that has something to do with it, too.
I mean, he's the best player in college football.
Who, Marshawn Lloyd?
No. But
Marshawn Lloyd's good.
The guy from DeMatha or the other guy from Gonzaga in the DMV.
Which one? They're both really
they're
good.
both. Just to let you know, they're both from the area.
Yeah. All right. We've got one more here, and then we might have some other ones, but we'll. The last one I had starred. USC MV, your honest opinion, do you think Alex Grinch has improved since last season?
I'm not comfortable answering that right now.
I'm also not comfortable answering that right now, but I would say, if this was USC's defense last year, I would say it's this, just a little bit, but I'm not confident to say we're back in the middle. No, I'm not confident.
No, and I'm not. Looking at the defense as a whole, I think the defense is better. I mean, there's no way we can know if Alex Grinch got. I mean, he's a coach, but they brought in better players. So if you have better players, you're probably going to look like a better coach. But they're going to play some tougher defenses, and if they're, continue to give up that many points per drive, and some of those, the other commenter put something like overall defense. You want the more advanced stats as far as points per drive and things like that. I think those are more important. But yeah, there's some concerning there. This is something I want to bring up because this comes up a lot. Anthony says, you will be suspended if you ask that guy's LOL. And that was talking about Rajon Davis playing.
No, I'll be suspended if I ask, why didn't Rajon Davis play in garbage time? That's when I'll be suspended.
But, okay, I think some of the – I posted us on the Peristyle too. This isn't a trial. Like, we can't force a coach to say something that you want. And we're not going to go to the coach and be like, that guy sucks. You should be playing him more. Like, that's just not – but we can ask, and we've done it a million times. No one's getting suspended for asking a question. What does Rajon Davis need to do, or what does he need to show in practice to get playing time? Why didn't he play? Like, that gets asked all the time. But I don't know. Fans just think it's like, okay, that's you need to be yelling at the coach. Like, this is not. What's that movie with Jack Nicholson? Like, you can't handle the truth. Like, there's no, we're not doing that. You just ask the questions and see what you get.
What is that movie?
I'm blanking on the name of that movie now.
God damn it.
I know. Oh, whatever. But sweet. Yeah. What's going on? Oh,
I really did not need
you're
Josh
watching.
Jacobs to score a touchdown right in there. They were at the 2-yard line, and they threw it, and they scored.
Your
So
fantasy teams.
I'm playing Ryan this week, by the way. So
Yeah, and what the fantasy leagues.
I need 6 points from the Eagles defense to beat the boss man. So let's go Eagles. Let's go Eagles.
That's a weird one. Okay. Hey, you know what? I have a few highlights we didn't get to show. This was a good one. You want to talk about like defensive?
A few good men.
A few good men.
a few good
Yes. Everyone's putting that in there.
You should have just said it.
This is pretty cool. Oh wait, no, this is a different one. This is Caleb Williams scrambling around. This is why you want the ball in his hands, dude. And he throws it to Brenden Rice. That was a really cool touchdown. That was a lot of fun. This one is Kalen Bullock's interception. I thought he did a really nice break on the ball here. He really just stepped right in front of the receiver. That was a nice play.
Great play.
I like that one. And also have Brenden Rice's first touchdown. I love like him stepping over the dude at the end. This was a back, Caleb Williams off his back foot, and he just kind of trots in the end zone. So pretty cool stuff there. So I want to show you guys a few highlights. Some feel-good stuff. If you're not feeling good about the team, like watch some of the things. They were good.
I'll have my field level highlights out tonight, so you can watch that. So I'm excited to watch those back.
I love it.
More in detail.
Yeah, we had a comment from Sager. Bullock got so. Oh, I'm sorry, I put the wrong one up there. He did get very high on that. He leaped really high in the air. That was a good one to see. Sorry, I put the wrong question up there for some reason. Let me try this one again. Yes, I did like that high point on the pick. They could have got a couple other turnovers too. The ball hits the ground, and you're just trying to make something happen. But
imagine Kalen as a receiver. He played receiver in high school too, so
yeah,
he could go up and get that ball.
Cool. All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap things up, guys. Unless you have anything else.
I did want to shout out.
Okay.
Dennis Lynch, the kicker. I don't think no one has been talking about it, but banged a 53-yarder. His career high was 49 last year. He's obviously been very quiet because they've been scoring so many touchdowns, but came in, knocked 2 critical field goals, including that 53-yarder. So he wasn't getting enough love. So I just wanted, as a former kicker, to give some love to the starter, Dennis Lynch, for his big leg on a Saturday.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Like Connor and I were discussing, is this even possible that it could go through? And I was I was leaning towards the no, and he
can
nails
make
it.
60 in practice.
Yeah. We haven't really seen it. Like game ones, we just haven't. They seem to come up like short. Like I don't know. I didn't have a lot of confidence, and he just nailed it. So shout out to Dennis. And then he hit the other one. He hit the short one, which we thought the shorter one. We thought there was some issues there. Like I mean, like potential. Like you hit the long one, he'll miss the short one. No, he hit them both. So shout out to him.
I want to be like, I didn't say that, but yeah.
No, I was the one.
No, I was saying it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, he made it just because you guys were saying couldn't do it in the press box. He was like,
We're like, I hear
bang
that.
this one for you two up there.
And then Chris, did you think they should have kicked the field goal to go up 2 scores? What it was a 6-point game, and they could have went up 9, and Riley went for it, and they didn't get it. Do you remember that?
The fourth, to going to Michael Jackson.
Yeah, the incomplete one to Michael Jackson.
Yeah, I mean, typically, I was fine with them going for it. It was kind of a dicey situation in the game where it's like you kind of want to take the points because your offense isn't going that well. But they were so close, and, it's Caleb Williams. I figured they could find a way to get those necessary yards. So I was okay with it, but also hindsight is obviously 2020. I felt when they were going to the fields like maybe we should have taken those 3 points. But in the moment, I was like, yeah, go for it.
I think the mentality is sort of like this shouldn't be a close game where you're worried about like making it 1 score versus 2 scores. Yeah. But that was the reality. There was a 1 score game. You could have made it 2 scores. I thought their field goal would have made sense there too. And we're getting some comments about special teams. This is one of the concerning aspects. We haven't brought this up yet. I thought special teams was bad. Like the Dennis Lynch one was great, but there wasn't really good blocking.
Zachariah Branch should have lost a fumble.
He should have lost that fumble. He returned a bunch of kicks that should have just been kneeled down and taken at the 25. And I get it. He capable of making big plays, but that was a tough place to. I think that's in that environment. You just say, hey, just take the knee, get the ball to 25. USC was starting at their own 15, at their own 18, stuff like that. I just didn't think, obviously the punt, giving up a 4th down weird punt thing where allowing a punt where you don't have anyone back to receive the punt. It just didn't look very clean on special teams. And those are hidden yards, points that, led to points, things that led to points. Like Arizona State scored after that. If you play decent on special teams, I think it's a different story there too. Outside of, a couple of big plays like the field goals. But outside of that, kickoff out of bounds, there was just stuff that they had, I thought, cleaned up pretty well the last couple of games on special teams. And then this game, they sort of reverted back to some bad special teams plays. And I don't necessarily want to see, you don't need Zachariah Branch to return for a touchdown every game, but you can't make bad plays. This was USC when, John Baxter was around. You would have, this amazing play that everyone would be talking about. Oh, I'll throw it back to Michael Pittman and he runs it for a touchdown. But you screw up all these other plays. And it was definitely a net negative, but there would be, the big highlight play. I would much rather see you just kind of be chill and just be make decent plays all around, if that makes sense.
It's definitely not good when Zachariah Branch doesn't come out on that first one and they pooch punt it, and then they bring him out for the second one and they run a fake. It was like, we're going to do whatever we're going to do based on your move. And I feel like if USC was better prepared, it was like a chess match, and they probably could have countered that a little bit better. It was a hell of a play by Scatabo, faking that punt and throwing it, and according to their head coach, it was something that wasn't planned, so all credit to them. But the fact that Zachariah Branch either being in or out determined what ASU was going to do, and USC clearly wasn't ready for that, you don't really feel very good about that. You want to be the one controlling what happens, not let the other team dictating things.
Yeah,
I could definitely tell he was making it up as he went along.
Oh, you
that
could.
Scatabo, when I was like, I don't think he's supposed to be doing that. And then it was so crazy it might work, and it worked. And just with Branch taking those kicks out, maybe an element of pressing there. It's kind of a tight game. Maybe you just want to make the big play.
Yeah.
Get your energy, your team, your sideline energized, and maybe take the crowd out a little bit. So you're kind of searching for the big play and pressing for the big play to happen. And obviously, it wasn't a good night for the return unit.
No, it was not. We got one last super chat from Relic, and we'll end this. Check out Lincoln Riley's Week 4 game history. He seems to always have a stinker at this point in the year. Laid an egg all but one season at Oklahoma and USC. So game 4, I think last year was Oregon State, right? Was that right?
That's not exactly a stinker, though.
I mean,
just where they played not to their abilities.
Yeah, I would have to go back and look at what he did at Oklahoma, but that's kind of interesting. That's around that time of year. It was USC played Rice at Stanford.
Yeah, it was Oregon,
Fresno State, and then Oregon State. Yeah.
If you stall for
I can stall some more. But thanks. First of all, thanks for the super chat, Relic. Appreciate that. We had a bunch of super chats. Thank you. You don't have to. We're not normally in the super chat business here on Tunnel Vision, but thanks for
Yeah, scraped by West Virginia in 2021. 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, the 4th game of the 2020 season was the Red River Shootout. So I don't know if we count that. but
Yeah.
they did win by it looks like 8 points.
Okay. I mean, it's a rivalry game. Like,
barely edged out Army 28-1 in 2018. 2019 they whooped Texas Tech. So
okay. So that was not a stinker.
beat Baylor by 8 points in 2017. So that was kind of a shootout, obviously. This one they edged out TCU. But TCU was ranked, so it does seem like the week 4 though is kind of a close game.
Yeah.
More or less.
So USC survived that one. Head to Boulder next weekend, and all 3 of us will be there. We'll probably do some sort of meetup on Friday, so kind of look on our Twitter feeds or on uscfootball.com for that. But hopefully you guys are, enjoy this run, what I would say. USC's got a really good team. I don't think they're like a national championship caliber team, but I think they're a playoff caliber team, or they have that potential. Have a lot of fun with it. This is a lot better than 2 years ago going 4-8. You got the best player in college football on your squad. When you got that, you can do almost anything. And there's going to be some amazing games. You're going to be like, oh my God, that was great. Because they're going to play some really good teams. I mean, you have, Washington's a top 10 team now. Oregon is right there. Utah's right there. Notre Dame was right there with Ohio State. Like, you beat a couple of those teams, you're going to feel pretty good about it. A lot better than you feel about beating Arizona State. And if it's ugly, it's ugly. You beat Notre Dame on the road, and it's 2-0. You don't care. Like, you just want to win that game. So have some fun with it. The team's pretty damn good. I think you should enjoy it. Enjoy the ride a little bit. All right, we're going to wrap it up there. Connor Morrissette, a.k.a. Triple Double. Chris Trevino, Helium Boy. He's got his cookie there. Connor, you want to show him how to do the bobblehead? Does he know how to, look at that. Little Caleb Williams bobblehead going. Nice. I hope you guys all enjoyed the show. Tell your friends about uscfootball.com. Jump onto the peristyle. Get in with in the fray. Talk about everything that's wrong with this team. That seems what everyone's doing. But go have fun with it. Hope you enjoyed the show, and we will talk to you next time.